G'day! In today's video I'm doing some benchmarks on the Gigabyte G5 with a 10500H, a RTX 3060 6GB model and 16GB of DDR4 and dual channel mode. If I remember correctly, that's 3200 MHz. And the games that I'll be playing on there will be Quake RTX, Rainbow Six Siege, GTA 5, Counter-Strike, WatchDogs, PlayerUnknown, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Fortnite, and also Doom Eternal. I will be doing a few more benchmarks down the line. Probably won't be for another week after this video, but these are the ones I've got for today. Catches. So let's check out Quake 2 RTX mode. Graphics settings, we're in RTX renderer. Show FPS, not really necessary. And most things seemingly maxed out from there. Let's go. As you can see, first thing I've spotted, we're currently running at 95 watts on the GPU and about 10 watts on the CPU. Running at about 50 FPS. Overall, it doesn't overly impress me. Also using about 9 gig of RAM there, as you can see. So very much a GPU demanding game, especially with the RTX. I think it might be a bit different if we disable RTX on this particular game. Anyway, it's just a quick demo. Just see how it goes. Damn. And next on the list is a Rainbow Six Siege. So as you can see, 1920 by 1080, and up here is the actual model of the panel in this particular laptop. VSync is off, go to boxing, go to graphics. Currently running on Ultra. Texture, overall quality is Ultra, very high. 16 times, Ultra, high, very high, high. So let's run it through the benchmark and see what we get. I was expecting it to run this game pretty darn well, but I wasn't actually expecting it to run quite this well, especially at the high settings that it's current, or ultra settings that it's set onto. And on GTA 5, 1920 by 1080, 240 Hz, VSync off, everything's set to very high, advanced graphics, let's now run the benchmark. So GTA is not running as good as I would have expected it to, but seeing it's a bit more of a CPU demanding game, it doesn't quite surprise me too much, but I would have expected it to average over around about 150 to 200 FPS constantly, like this. So next up on the list is Counter-Strike Global Offensive, running at 1920 by 1080, full screen windowed. I don't know why we're full screen windowed. Let's change that. And settings set to high, high, texture streaming disabled, high. Pretty much everything mostly looking pretty darn good. So right now I'm just going to download a map or download a replay that's currently getting played on Inferno? No, Mirage, sorry. It's been a little while since I've played CSGO. But I think this machine might get me back into playing it. Especially if we have a look at the FPS that's going on up here. So currently cracking 230, pretty much cracking 230 FPS. Dipping down as low as about 200, and then down to about 180 depending on what's going on. Granted, this is only 5 vs 5, but it's going to be quite easy to keep this pretty much maxed, I believe. So right now around 180, 175. So now looking pretty darn good. I do believe though this panel came out as 144Hz version as opposed to 240. Pretty much most games you'd chuck at it that are esport related would be maxing out at 144Hz quite easily, as you'd be matching the FPS perfectly. So it's a little bit overkill being 240Hz, but for some games that's not really going to hurt, especially here where you could either leave it as it is, or you could drop down your textures down to medium, most stuff down to medium, and run it flat out at 240 to 300 FPS, and be maxing out the screen the whole time. So now, looking pretty darn good. Next up on the list is WatchDogs 2. Full screen, VSync off, FPS limit off, quality. Range very high for most things. Let's have a quick play. Absolutely useless at this game, but we'll see what happens. Apart from me getting caught. Like there. So as you can see, GPU is at 95% utilization. CPU is at 70%, or between 70 and 50% utilization. Now I don't actually know how to hack this door. The GPU running at 80 watts, CPU running at 45 watts. Reasonably even distribution. And using about 12 gig of RAM, or 11 gig of RAM. So a fair bit there actually. So the next one to look at is PUBG. Running at full screen, 1920 1080, capped at 30 FPS in the lobby, unlimited otherwise, and everything's set to ultra. No VSync. Currently just running around the lobby. So surprisingly from the air we're still receiving a fairly similar frame rate, which does surprise me a little bit. I usually expect long draw distances to absolutely tank it. Let's jump and go. Sorry fellas, I ended up joining a 4-person squad. I don't believe I'm going to be alive long enough to be of any help for you guys. Looking at the top here as well, anywhere between 70 to 85 watts, and the CPU hanging around about 45 again. It gives us a combined wattage of about 125 watts for the CPU and GPU, and being the processor is 180 watts, the power supply is 180 watts. It seems to add up pretty well. There we go, first person. Looking at the ground to increase FPS. Right now, as I said, everything's set to ultra right now, so you can just drop that down a bit, make it run a bit smoother. Some actual useful equipment. There we go. Set some bullets into this Tommy. As you can see with the RAM usage as well, this has got 16 gig of RAM and currently it's using 13.3 gig of RAM. So it is a very RAM hungry game. I'd say if you're getting very low FPS in this, or very low 1% lows. That's fairly unstable in your frame rate. Definitely check out your RAM for this particular game. Upping it to 16 gigs, potentially going to smooth it out. Leave that behind. I'm seeing a lot of nothing. Let's get up here. There we go, there's the frame rate drops I would have expected from the sky. Bugger. That's the end of me. So now we've got Battlefront 2, a video, 1920 by 1080, full screen refresh rate, 240 Hz, desync off, and everything's set to high. Now, granted, this would be a bit different compared to true multiplayer. I've jumped into a single player, or just made a single player match, mainly due to the fact that I waited about 15 minutes and couldn't actually get into a multiplayer match, which was a tad disappointing. So let's try and get into some combat here. There were some people. So graphics card wattage seems to be fairly similar to the other games, running at about 80 watts, and the processor running around 45. So it seems to be usually a combined of 125 watts for the pair. Bugger. That seemed to be floating around anywhere from 115 to 130 FPS. As I say, that jumped up to 150 while dead. Let's go. So assuming tweaking the graphics down, we should be able to get it to run a bit closer to the 240 Hz. Overall, very darn smooth, especially with this panel. Damn. Let's have a quick look at the Fortnite settings. 1920 by 1080. Pretty much nearly everything's set on epic. A few things on high. VSync off. And DLSS off also. Oh, a bit of an FPS drop right there. As we jumped out of the bus. Should start stabilizing in a minute. There's a little bit of micro stuttering going on. Now I am absolutely terrible at this game. As you can see. I will just follow this person just for a little bit now. Doom Eternal. So checking it out. Up the top here we got VRAM. For some weird reason it's collectively pooling the RAM from the 3060, which has 6 gig, and the RAM that's allocated to the Intel graphics. So this is not an accurate amount. Scrolling down, 1920 by 1080, motion blur off, and pretty much everything's set to high. So from here, resolution scaling targets, no, we don't want any of that. Off, apply. Some ammo would be nice on Doom Eternal. There we go. Now we can get going.